Segula, you know, put on your shield protection, you know.
I'm well versed with that lesson.
But it is a powerful name, and it does, apparently.
All right. We are going to do our third class tonight in Kabbalah of Adam on Metatron in the Talmud. We are shifting to the Jerusalem Talmud just for a bit. One of the things that's pretty neat about the Jerusalem Talmud is everything in it is shorter. In the Babylonian Talmud, the pieces are much longer, and in the Jerusalem Talmud, they're much shorter. That's because it is higher. The Jerusalem Talmud is Leah. Babylonian Talmud is Rachel. That is the secret of why this happens. So, without further ado, let's say our prayer and let's get into our study. This will be a good prelude into, I guess we've all have a consensus. Next week, even though if I don't have the book, I'm gonna try to order that 3 Enoch. Mine is really big. I'm sure it's gonna be the same, but I think we're gonna do a series on 3 Enoch. We are going to make that book our own.
You want to show them that one?
Yeah.
You can order it?
Yeah. So 3 Enoch. Do not buy Enoch 1, 2. Only buy this one if you buy one. The rest of them have been stepped on by Christianity. They got their Christian translators in there. They stepped all over it. It's trade. So this is the only one.
Down there with Odenberg.
Hugo
Odenberg.
That is kosher. Okay, and even in that, he is a scholar. He is not anything but a scholar, and he in the notes and stuff, you know, we've read through the notes, and he can't even put it together because he doesn't.
He's just looking at it but the translation.
But the translation's good.
And tell him this is on Amazon.
Yeah, it's on Amazon for $18. Okay, so we're gonna do that, and it is a big book. It will probably take us a year to go through it. So anyway, that's what we're gonna do. Next week though, I'm thinking before we start this, I'm gonna do Isaiah 53 at a raw volley, line by line, and y'all can put it out there everywhere. We're gonna squash that bug completely. So without further ado, ruler of the universe and master of all masters, Father of mercy and forgiveness, we thank you, our God and the God of our fathers, by bowing down and kneeling, that you brought us closer to your Torah and your holy work, and that you enable us to take part in the secrets of your holy Torah. How worthy are we that you grant us with such a big favor. That is the reason we plead before you, that you will forgive and acquit all of our sins, and they should not bring separation between you and us. And may it be your will before you, our God and the God of our fathers, that you will awaken, prepare our hearts to love and revere you. And may you listen to our utterances and open our closed heart to the hidden studies of your Torah. And may our study be pleasant before your place of honor, as aroma of sweet incense. And may you emanate to us light from the source of our soul to all of our being. And may the sparks of your holy servants, through which you revealed your wisdom to the world, shine. May their merit and the merit of their fathers and the merit of their Torah and holiness support us, so we shall not stumble through our study. And by their merit enlighten our eyes in our learning, as stated by King David, the sweet singer of Israel. Open my eyes so that I will see wonders from your Torah. Because from his mouth God gives wisdom and understanding. May the utterance of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart find favor before you, God, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen. All right, so when it comes to Metatron, I'm gonna try to explain it the best I can. So, because what I have to try to get everybody to do is, when you say greater and lesser, it sounds dualistic, okay? The lesser is the greater, only that's his interface in a lower dimension, all right? It's not that he's up there or he's down here, it's just him, okay? So, I'm going to try to give us we have to use the 7 wisdoms, just like we were talking earlier before class, Glenn, when the Gaon of Vilna says, if you don't know the 7 wisdoms, you can't understand anything. You have to understand holography. You have to understand dimensionality. You have to understand light and how it bends and how it does and this and that and the other. frequency, all the alchemy, all the different things that go along with elements, you know, and how they work. Taurus, you know, the hurricane that just came through, it's a Taurus, you know, so you have to understand how this stuff works. A vacuum, black hole, you name it, all right? Because God created all of that. I mean, everything is sustained in this world through science, whether it's electricity, whether it's gravity, doesn't matter, right? So, with that being said, one of the things that I've figured out this week in studying is, why don't people study what we study? Why don't they try to learn what we're learning? Why don't they learn in the Talmud the way we're trying to learn in the Talmud? Why do they not go and really pull out the Arizal and the Leshem and Vali and all of these Ben Ish Hai and all? It's all out there, you know. But it's all most except for maybe the Ben Ish Hai, you know, and the Leshem. Vali's not. So, but but one of the problems.
That's what we come here for.
Yeah, that's what we come here for. But one of the problems is, you know, every sage, every tzaddik has the ability to learn and read all that, and it's just kind of pushed over. Part of it's the exile and things that are going on there. But I figured out what it is. It's a simple term called temple technology. Because there is no temple, the technology was lost. There is a technology in how the temple operated. There are formulations in what they say. You know, the Shemona Esrei is a formulated prayer. Most prayers in Hebrew are formulas. They are mathematical formulas, you know, like the 72 name in Exodus when Moses parts the sea, that everything he said there was the 72 name of Ab. You know, everything is very critical on what they say and how they do it. So what I figured out is, when Daniel, Ezra, Nehemiah, Mordecai, when all when the temple was being destroyed, the first temple was being destroyed, which had the highest technology operating. We studied that through our Solomon class, right? The technology there is amazing. I mean, he's flying all over the world, right? In his Merkava, you know. He's collecting plants and from the four corners of the world, and he's growing everything there. The things that really don't even grow in that area, but he knew through just like the botany and the biology and everything of how to make these things grow, and they would grow. So, not to mention crossing dimensionality worlds into the shading world, you know. So there's a technology that they had. Well, toward the end times, we know that technology is going to return. And look at the technologies that we have today. We can get a digital signal from a satellite up to a space, up to a receiver satellite, and then that digital signal then comes back to our satellite called the DirecTV satellite or the dish or whatever you got. And then that digital signal is then transposed through dots, lines of dots on a screen. And when that digital signal emits its light, you watch a football game. Are they actually playing football in your living room? No. Right? Are they actually playing, they're playing football somewhere, but not there. But
if it's live.
Yeah, if it's live. But they're not playing on your living room floor. This is Metatronics. Okay? So, I have a great example of when you're stuck in the nefesh and you can't understand Metatron. I have 3 Labrador Retrievers. And on Sunday mornings, I watch hunting shows. Okay? And duck hunting shows, deer hunting shows, it doesn't matter what it is, I'm watching them. Well, guess what? My Labrador Retrievers know how to do all that and they watch those hunting shows with me. When the deer runs across the screen, they run to the TV, and then they go run and look around the TV and try to find the deer. Because to them, that is real. It's actually in the living room. They just said water, water. You get it? They just took a 3D technological projection of something that exists and concretized it in my living room.
They made it there instead of
That's
here,
right.
here instead of there.
That's right. That is the ratio of greater Metatron, lesser Metatron. It's not that it's not real, but it's not real. There is no such thing as Metatron, yet everything is Metatron. All right? It works like that. Just like our phone signal. When you are talking to somebody on that phone, that's not a real voice. That is a digitally encrypted, broken down voice that's then redigitized to match that sound, and it is that person. But it is not that person. So every piece of technology that we have through science is Metatronic. Now, take that and say the Orpheme, the Hyot, the Seraphim, the Partsufim, the Sphirot, no matter where you stack that technology, that is Metatron in that level, okay? And it is 100%, when I'm calling you, it's 100% me talking to you, but that is not me, right? So this is how you have to take it. You have to hold on to this very loosely, you know, but without understanding science and technology, you're not going to understand God at all. And matter of fact, you're probably not doing it anyway, right? So when it comes to prayer, as we've been teaching over the last few months and stuff with prayer, there's some very specific rules. These are the technologies that they had. You know, yes, you can just say, "Oh God, how you doing today?" Da 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 da. But if you're really trying to get the signal from the satellite back to your dish, back to your house, there's certain things that have to happen for that to happen. Prayer and everything else is no different. Okay. We figured out the staff technology. We've started to figure out a lot of these technological things. So today, we are going to have a very technological class on prayer, and it's going to come straight out of the Jerusalem Talmud. Everything we've studied so far is this Metatronic technology of how everything works, you know? So I'm going to read this to you. This is in Brokos. It's 26.2, 26b2 out of the Jerusalem Talmud. And it's just like Brokot in the Babylonian Talmud. It's all they mirror each other. It's all talking about prayer. So listen to this. Rav Yeremiah in the name, it's blurry, I can't see that because it took a picture of it. It's talking about focus during prayer. If one pray and did not focus in his mind was what he was saying, if he knows what he can go back and pray and focus his mind this time. He should pray, but if not, he should not pray. It's called kavana, intent. You know, if you're going to pray, you should have intent. You know, you should be very specific. All right. And so what they're doing is they're asking the sages, well, what happens to you? Okay. So Rav Chia the Great said, from my earliest days, I could concentrate properly on my prayers. However, one time, you know, they always do that. However, one time, I really sought to focus. And I began musing in my mind, thinking, who should enter before the king first? The Al-Kafta or the Elixar? So during the time, there was Persian rule. Okay? So the Persians had a ruler over the Jews. But he knew God had put that ruler, he knew it was a Tsar. There was a Tsar above him. And he knew that Tsar was over Persia, even though they were over them. Or the Elixarch, who is over the Jews at the time. You know, the Jews have a head guy over them. The Persians have a head guy over them. But if this guy's over there, so he was going to pray, and he was trying to figure out who should enter who first. Who is the highest? The head guy over Israel, or the head guy over the Persians? Who's the highest? Even if one rules over the other. You know, if Israel is ruling or if Persia is ruling. Of course, in exile, the exile's always ruling. This would be like Trump and Netanyahu. Who enters first? You know? So, but he was focusing on this in his prayer. Now, thus I was unable to have proper intent even on that one occasion. Now, that's kind of in the commentary. Similar accounts. Shmuel said, I found myself counting baby birds. All right? Rav Bun Barchia said, I found myself counting rows of stones in the wall. Rav Matanya said, I give thanks to my head. That even though I fail to concentrate on my prayers, when it reaches the word Modin, in the Shemona Esrei, the third bowing, you know, it bows by itself. Now, if y'all have been in this class long enough, and I know y'all have, they are giving us the technology of prayer. And they are completely concealing it because they know what each other is talking about all the time. One says, well, I try to figure out if it's the Al-Kafta or the Elixarch. I count birds, or I count the stones in the wall. Well, I just worry about, I just do it till we get to the word Modin, and it bows itself. I'm not even worried about it. I bow my head, And so what they are doing is they are giving us the blueprint. And they always do that in Talmud. That is their gig. So with that in mind, we are going to now get into our piece, and we are going to talk about technology. And then we're going to go over what all that's talking about. Okay? So just real quick, the Exarch is called the Reish Gadlut. He is the head. The Al-Kafta, he is the viceroy of the Persians, of the non-Jews. He would go first before the king. That's well known. He would go in first before the king. So now we have the world of Akudim, and we have the world of Nekudim. Akudim is the bound, and Nekudim is the fractured. So if it comes to physics, to quantum mechanics would be Akudim, and regular physics would be Nekudim. This is string theory, and this is fractals and fractal geometry and stuff, right? So these are the sciences. If you put them together, Berudim that fixes both, that's called the unified field theory in physics. That's where you unify the thing and you take this part. These two, quantum mechanics and regular physics, if you watch the Big Bang Theory, they never agree. But when you bring unified field theory in, it's a superconscious position, which is Berudim, which is Genesis. This is where it's fixing the two technologies of being bound and being fractured. So, Classical physics is the inner lining of quantum mechanics, just like Nekudim is the inner lining of Akudim that fell out, and so on, like a travel cup. Bloop, 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 bloop. So the Kasha, the Peshat in 3D almost has no Metatron. If you can read Peshat, Peshat, Peshat all day, and you won't see Metatron in it at all. But that's classical physics. But if you get into quantum physics, quantum mechanics, like we do, you see Metatron everywhere. It's in everything because you're at that dimension. All right? That's the Sod level. Everything is Metatron in that level. And you're going to find out everything in this piece I just read to you is talking about Metatron. You know? So how do you put classic Torah, the classic commentators, they all know it. Rashi knew it. They all know it. They don't expound on it. They don't allude to it. Very rarely will you even see them mention it. With the Metatronic Torah, Torah A versus Torah B, right? How do you put those two together? So the Torah says, the oral Torah says, that a handmaiden at the splitting of the Red Sea saw more and knew more than any prophet in Israel, including Ezekiel's vision. So that gives you an idea of the technology that was working at Sinai and in Egypt. I mean, look at what Moses and Pharaoh were doing with their deal, you know, and bringing plagues. And I mean, this stuff was on a high level, you know. If you didn't think it was technology, you would think it is sorcery, which is backside technology, you know. Which is why Rambam says they have a staff too, right? Which is their little magic wand. If you look through the correct lens, everything is Metatron. And it appears to push God out of the picture, right? How do you make the unification between Peshat and the lesser Metatron, the inner lining of the greater? You have to push Torah B back into Torah A, which is what we try to do. So, the physics kasha is light needs a medium to travel through. What would be that medium in Torah? The Partsufim, the Spherotes, the worlds, the Noga. Those are the mediums that it uses. However, when they did experiments on light, the physicists, they couldn't prove it until Einstein's theory of relativity was formed, and it basically proves that there is no Metatron, there's only the Metatronics. In other words, it's only the technology. You can say that phone is my Metatron. That's my Keruv, that's my Malachim, that's my angel, you know, that I use to communicate with. Don't confuse that with me. But when it rings, you better pick it up, and whoever's speaking on the other end is going to be me. You better do what I say. You see? So it's, even though that is my lesser Metatron, that is how I interface with my creation. Right? So we can't let Metatron push God out of the way. We have to let the Metatron and Metatronics prove that God is everywhere. That is just how it is connecting with its creation, no matter what it is, whether it's the angels and this and that and the other. Because you want to say, I am here and it is there. No. You can't say, I'm here and God is there. No. That's water. Mashiach, Metatron is. It's when the Metatronics, which is just the system, which is the Torah, to learn that there's nothing here except God and His Torah. So once you understand that there's nothing here but He and His name, oh no, what's it? Oh, it was trying to reconnect. I hope I'm still on here. I believe I am. So the Torah is His Metatron, His Metatronics. We just have to make the unification. That's the secret. We are the unified field theory, bringing it all back together because it's been separated. Everybody wants to separate it. It's the 7 wisdoms. It's the 7 sciences that are in the Hitzonim, in the periphery, which now brings us, using this, will now bring us into Asiya, as the Leshem says. Sandalphon is the key entry point for the Noga. So the Leshem says Sandalphon is the key entry point for the Noga. And guess what? All Gerim are Noga. So Sandalphon is our guy. Who is Sandalphon? Elijah. Who does God send in the end of days? Elijah. Now, don't make the mistake that Sandalphon is not Metatron and that's not Octriel and that is the interfacing point that's the most closest to you. All right? Is it God? 100%. But that is our interface, is Sandalphon. Okay? Now, remember in Avodah Zarah 3, if you have Tractate of Avodah Zarah, 50, it's a book 52. In 3, remember Metatron was teaching the people? Let's see if I can find that. 3A1. 3A1. That even an idol worshiper, even a Nokri, it's really not an idol worshiper, it's a Nokri, who occupies themselves in Torah is like a Kohen Gadol. It doesn't say that the Gerim are a Kohen Gadol in Israel. It doesn't say that they are equal to the Kohen Gadol. It says you are a Kohen Gadol. Who is Kohen Gadol? Metatron. Who is the Rosh Yeshiva? Who is the head of the temple? Metatron. The Kohen Gadol is that interface. It's saying you are a Kohen Gadol in your Partsufim. In the Noga, there has to be a ratio, Kohen, Levite, Israelite, Ger. Well, guess what? Even within the Noga, there is a plethora of Noga. There's the Ger Tzedek, there's the Ger Toshav, there's just the plain Ger, we'll call them the Noahide, and then there is the non-idolater that doesn't worship anything but God, doesn't do anything else.
That's the all Malchut or all Atzilut in Malchut.
All of Atzilut is in Malchut, exactly. Every there's in Asiya there's Nefesh, Ruach, Neshad, there's everything in every level. So, because Heblam shoot, light overlaps, right? This is unified field theory. So, they argue this text. Oh, well, it really doesn't mean that. Well, no, it really does. Rebbe Meir wouldn't have said it. So what happens is you have your own Partsuf. You know, you are your own olam. You're your own malchut. You're your own thing, and you're in charge of your own thing, and you're going to be judged by that. I mean, that's pretty plain and simple. So take that technology, and now you can run that piece of space-time that God put you in charge of, right? So let's continue. And Sandalphon is going to be the entry. Now, back to Jerusalem Talmud. Jerusalem Talmud here is talking about prayer and the kavana, the intent. So the Rampano was he was one of the leading sages actually in Rome, Italy, with Vali and those guys. He comes from cut from that same cloth, right? Rav Chia the Great says, all my life and my days, as we read, that I was trying to decide who goes in first. Does the Al-Kafta or does the Exlarch, E-X-I-L-X-L-A-R-C-H, arc, go in? All right? So he says, what is the one that ties the crowns on the head of Hashem called? Why is the one that ties the crowns on the head of Hashem called the Sar HaPanim, the minister of the face or faces, right? He is called the Sar HaPanim because his power is increased according to the quality of the face of those that are praying. So according to the kavana, to the intent, the Metatronic system is increased if you're using the correct system. And when you're using the correct system, then that increases the prayer, then that increases Hashem. It's a chain reaction. There is the one who does not know to pray except from the nefesh. And he has his own sar. Now, who the ger are going to be the nefesh relative to the Jew, in because it's a graduated deal. All right. He has his own sar. The name of that sar is Sandalphon. This is speaking about us. And there are others. In the Ruach, it's Metatron, who is greater. Why? Because it's expanding. And regarding those two, many daughters have done great, as it says in Psalms. He calls them many daughters because there's two, Sandalphon and Metatron. Regarding the Neshama, when you get to the Neshama and you're ascending through all of them, you get to Octriel. So remember, we read in Brakot that Rabbi Ishmael was in the Holy of Holies and Octriel was there. And he said, bless me, my son. And he blessed him, right? And I put the prayer on the page. Why didn't it say Metatron and why didn't it say Sandalphon? Because it's temple technology. If he would have been in the courtyard, it would have been Sandalphon. If he'd have been in the holies, it would have been Metatron. If it would have been in the Holy of Holies, it's Octriel. This is the Sulam. This is the ladder. Sandalphon's entry point, as it expands, he obviously walked through the courtyard, expanded, he went into the Metatron aspect, and then it expanded again. He was in the Octriel aspect. They're all the same thing, just increased on the level according to where you are, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, on up. All right? So, Octriel, the great Sar HaPanim, is the redeeming Moloch that Jacob referred to when he said, let us go let us go with our. I'm sorry. I believe it's. I'm sorry, Moshe. That Moses, Jacob referred to this redeeming Moloch as well. But Moses said to Pharaoh, "Let us go with our children and our elder." Go out and pray, right? And go out to worship. This is who they were going with. The secret of the matter is Moses wasn't talking about going out with the children and the old people. Why didn't he say the children, the young adults, the adults, and our elders? It doesn't say that in Torah. It says, Pharaoh, let us go with our children and our elder to pray. Yes. Who's he talking about? The children, the Na'ar, is Sandalphon and Metatron. And the elder is a Catriel. This is what Moses was saying, according to Rav Pana. This is the completion of the supernal Merkava, supernal chariot. This description of the Sar HaPanim that we mentioned. There are many explanations of the secret places of the worlds. One is alluding to, and Rav Chia Rabbah said in Brakot, that he used in his davening. Who should go before the king first? The secret of the matter is, this is Actriel. He is one of the three that we have spoken of, Pano is saying. Because, Al-Kafta is the code for Actriel. He's not, you really think about it. I mean, if you really think about it, you think Rav Chia, before he goes to pray, is worried about who's over Persia? And who's over Israel? No, of course not. One is Actriel, which is the Al-Kafta, and the other one, of course, is Metatron. Who goes in first? Or the other, Metatron, who is Enoch, son of Jared. Jared is the descender. That means to descend, the one that descended. This is where they get all the Jesus thing. He was the one that was in heaven, descended, became flesh, and was taken out. And that, of course, that's why you got to have a kosher Enoch 3 and not an Enoch 1 or 2, because they're going to put it on there every time. Every time. It is Metatron because he goes into exile. He's the one that goes into exile. He had to come down, right? When the fall, God's going with his people. That's the interface he's going to use. It is Metatron because he goes into exile. This was Rav Chia's intent. He is telling us when praying, you have speech and thought. Higher, thought, Actriel, speech, Metatron. On what do you put your focus? Are you thinking on what? Are you thinking, is your intent on what you're going to say? Or what you say? Are you concentrating on the sound of the letters? Or on the thought of what you were thinking? Because it is a prohibition to try to figure out how to daven. You're just supposed to go in. But you can't just go in because you've got to think and you've got to speak. What they're teaching you is the intent, the kavana. Are you focusing on the entry point, on the technology of what you're doing? Which is the temple technology, which is what has been lost. How to really connect to God. Speech is the Metatronic aspect of it. Thought is the Actriel aspect of it. They will always oscillate. I'm thinking and I'm speaking, and I'm thinking and I'm speaking, and I'm thinking and I'm speaking. He is telling us, he is not telling us what not to do or that he did not know. Like he didn't have it in the right time all of the other times he was praying. He is telling us how. The secret is if you are working on the Metatronic spectrum, if you are not working on the Metatronic spectrum, you are not praying. Sandalphon is Gematria 280. When the Torah fell at Sinai because of the golden calf, what happened? The 5 final letters, the Metatron, fell, correct? Mm-hmm. What is the Gematria of the Metatron? 280. What is the Gematria of the red heifer? The Parduma? 280. What is the Gematria of Pardinim? 280. This is the Sandalphonic aspect. This is why we can fix it. Remember our class on the red heifer years and years ago. The secret is the Noga Ger, Nefesh HaGer. And so he says, the ayin in the middle of Psalms. So turn to, this is the secret of Sandalphon. Russell, you're going to love this. Go Psalm 80:14. Did you? Mm-hmm. All right, perfect. So Teresa, which part? This is in the middle of Psalms. This is the very middle letter in the middle of Psalms. Did y'all talk about that?
Being the very middle of the Psalms?
Very middle of Psalms. Psalm 80:14 is the very middle of Psalms, in the book of Psalms. It's the center. And what do you think the center word is? The boar of the forest ravages it. The word forest here. Now, if you will look in the Hebrew, right there, I've highlighted it, you will see an ayin that is floating above the word. You see the ayin floating above the word?
No, it's not like that.
What is the ayin? It is Gematria 70, the 70 nations. It is also the secret of Sandalphon. And it is also what?
It's in the forest.
Yeah. And the boar of the forest, the Hazir, the one that returns, is who, Russell? What is the Hazir that returns? The floating ayin is the head of Esau.
Yeah.
The Ger.
The holy head of Esau.
The holy head of Esau, the Gerim, which is the secret of this 280 that he's speaking about, Sandalphon. That's why we have a huge connection to it.
Wasn't that the whole Sandalphon, Metatron? Wasn't that Hiram,
Arona,
and all of those
All
guys
of them.
like that? That was this whole thing that it
Jethro,
was giving you an example.
Og, Eleazar. It's the whole system.
It's the whole system. So that is, they are the Sandalphon in relationship to the Metatron, and it's what this is saying here.
That's why the secret of the Talmud is Judah the Prince and Antoninus. Sandalphon, Metatron. Everyone. Now it's all self-explanatory. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the secret of my relationship with my rabbi. Your relationship. It's the deal.
Yeah.
It's what it is. Because there has to be Netzach and Hod. Hug. Metatron, Sandalphon. When that's together, a Octriel. So, the word Metatron, the ayin is in the middle of Psalms, the middle letter here. You see that in the Chumash that it is larger. What is the deal with the ayin in the middle of Psalms? Yud, ayin, resh, ya'ar, suspended ayin means forest. The word before is the hazir, the pig, the Esau, the 70, the skin, the holy head of Esau. Ya'ar is 280. Sandalphon is 280. The Manatzapach are 280. The Pardinim is 280. The Paraduma is 280. Because Sandalphon is the or, the noga of the head of Esau, the hazir, says Pano. Her feet descend to death out of the edge of Metatron. It's what's going back and getting everything and pulling it up. That's why the head of Esau rolled into the Yesod, to the lap of Yitzhak. Which means everyone prays to a different Metatronic interface through Nefesh Hager. You just can't make it out. Okay, so that is exactly why he had to bring the Persian, the Jew and non-Jew in the deal. Right here. Even though Persia's really Ishmael, Pano is explaining it as Noga, and then using that as Esau, Jacob. Right? Lesser, greater Metatron. It doesn't matter. Cain and Abel. It's all the way down through. Ephraim and Manasseh. The twin messiahs. Twin messiahs are Sandalphon and Metatron. Enoch and Elijah. It doesn't matter where you plug it in. The Metatronics, the technology works. And that's what we're after. The wisdom, the science of it. So, what are the birds? Because Shmuel says, I count birds, baby birds. What are birds in Torah? Angels. He's talking Metatronics too. I just count the Metatronic angels, interfaces.
The cherubs, maybe?
Yeah, they're Karus, sure.
Yeah.
Right?
They're the babies.
Right? Because on the ark, are they not called youths, babies? Look like baby birds to me. What would Shmuel be counting baby birds for? Why share his intimate secret on what he does? These guys are revealing secrets of the universe, of prayer. One's got his Sandalphon Metatronic interface going on. The other one is going through the Keruvi.
Through the angels.
Yeah. Why would he do? Because they're teachers. They are trying to teach you. Because these are the groups of Malachim that elevate the prayers through their wings. The wings are the membrane through the dimensions. Rav Boone says he counts rows of stones in the wall. Why would he count stones? What do we know about stones? Asiya. He goes in Asiya, whereas Yetzirah is the world of angels. Berea is the world of Metatron. Because these are the circuits and the pathways. He's going down the pathways, counting the rows. It's not a wall. He's counting rows of stones. Because these are circuits and the pathways which the prayers are transmitted. Rabbi Matanya says, I give thanks to the head in Modin and the third bow. Why is he saying this? Because they're giving you a system. Each one of them is giving you a segment, and he's in the next segment, which is the third segment, which is the third bow in the Shemona Esrei. And we thank you.
The other two were the first and the second battle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because he's drawing down the Shefa without effort. My head just bows. Because he did it right from the beginning. There was no struggle. As it says in Bava Kama, every 7 years, and remember, 7 years it's a bat, and it's this a bat, and it's a this, and it's a that, then it finally gets to a serpent and it turns into a nakash, right? A demon, turns into a demon in the 6th year, and then if you don't bow at the 3rd Modin, it turns into a nakash. But what does it say in Avodah Zoa 7:1? Is it not Avodah Zoa, Brokot 7:1. I got it right here. When it's talking about prayer. That we studied.
Is that an A1?
Yeah, that we studied when we started this whole thing to begin with. So it says, I saw Actriel, Yah Hashem Tzivaot, sitting high and lofty on a throne, and said to me, Yishmael, my son, and he said, bless me. And I said to him, may it be your will that your mercy conquer your anger, and that your mercy overcome your sterner attributes, and that you behave toward your children with the attribute of mercy, and that for their sake you go beyond the boundary of judgment. And he nodded to me with his head. And my head nods. You see what they just did? You just take the Babylonian Talmud and the Jerusalem Talmud, and one is he's bobbing his head, and the other one is Metatron's bobbing his head, nodding his head. They are both bowing because that's what triggers it. When it's going into the system of Metatronics correctly, you will bow, and it will bow.
As below, so above.
That's right. These 4 separate accounts will stand alone on their own because they are Berea, Asiya, Yetzirah. And the last one is Atzilut, because the Shefa is being brought down by the nodding of his head. So the last one says, oh yeah, Matanya says, I give thanks to the head. When it reaches Modim, it bows by itself. It's genius technology. It's genius that we even have access to what's going on. Why do they have issues with Kavana? These guys they're masters. They don't have issues with intent and prayer. They're not thinking about where they're going to go eat later. They're not.
Gotta pay the bill.
Or how to pay. They're not. These guys are speaking with God. Literally. And he's speaking back. Once you know the secret, now you have the problem. Because now you have to focus. And they knew the secret. And they knew they had to focus. Because when you are up that high, the fall is a long way down. These aren't exceptions to the rules. These are the rules of prayer that we've studied. When the temple was destroyed, we lost our temple technology. The sages kept it in the Talmudic writings of Gemara and Agadata. Metatron has no house or no Mishkan. He has no place. There's no place for God. There's no place for this interface. So you have to become it. You have to create your center. You have to become your own Partsuf. You have to enter in through these technologies just like they did. That Rabbi Ishmael wasn't even around during the time of the temple. But what does he say? Oh, once on Yom Kippur I entered the Holy of Holies. You better believe he did. You see? because he ain't here. Because there's a huge machloket. Was he old enough? He was only 13 years old at the time before the temple was destroyed. And they're just going back and forth. Are they arguing? No. They're trying to teach you. It's a system that these guys have. He absolutely was there. The point is moot, whether the temple is there or not. He could care less.
Just because the high priest wasn't really in the temple here. He was in the temple there.
Yeah. And just like us, we are our own high priest when you study all the precepts of Torah. So that's why we say all the time, well, how much Torah can a non-Jew study? As much as you can handle. That's pertinent to you. If it's not pertinent to you, don't study it. You know? If it is pertinent to you, study it. Pano goes on. The energy, basically, it's rabbis having to translate these words, because there's not really we could say hashmal, but then you have to break that down, right? That are activated during the prayers are called crowns. And why are they called crowns and not atarot, or like a tiara? Why are they called crowns? The atara goes around the entire head. Therefore, it has a front side and a back side. That's why it's not called the typical word for a crown. Okay? A crown only, but the crown itself that they're explaining, it only sits on the front of the head. It has no backside, like a tefillin. And the one that ties on those crowns is called the Sar HaPanim. Works off the face, which there is no backside. Now, there is a backside relative to the lower levels, but not at this level, you know? Someone who only knows to pray on the nephesh, to weave in that place the crown on his head, is known as sandalphon, as is mentioned in Hagigah that we have studied. And once it's into the Ruach, it is now Metatron. And once it's into Atriel, it's into the Neshama. And the great prince that Yaakov mentioned, was Yaakov's request at the blessing of his two lads. He called him the Malach HaGoel, Atriel, the redeeming angels. Therefore, Jacob is working all three levels. And that completed the Merkava. As it says, the patriarchs are the Merkava. Three patriarchs are Sandalphon, Metatron, Atriel. They stand on their own. Why is he called the redeeming angel? Because on that level, everything has been redeemed and there is no klipa on it. The Noga has its own sulam, its own ladder. Like it says in the Talmud, every man has a ladder in his house, his own Metatron. So, the medium itself isn't real, just the message. Right? So you don't attach anything to the medium, just to the message. Yet Metatron and Sandalphon are never separate. Atriel is the face of Metatron and Sandalphon. It's the upper level. And the Arizal brings another deal here. With the Atriel, Yah, Hashem, Tzivaot that we read, with Rebbe Ishmael in Brokot 7a1. In the Torah, the word well is Baer, which is Gematria 203. So Baer, He says, you don't read it as by air. You read it, which is Bet Aleph Resh. The same word, Bet Aleph Resh, rearranged is Aver. Aver, which is Yesod. This is why he's called Aver High, Avram, which is Aver High, Erect Yesod. They are the same letters. But you read it, Bet Aleph, Aleph to Aleph, 1 to 1,000. You read it Bet Aleph Resh, because Aleph is 1,000. Bet is 2, Aleph is 1,000, Resh is 200, which is Gematria 1002. So every time a well is mentioned, Miriam's well, Jacob's well, Abraham's well, every one of these is code word for Atriel, Yah, Havayah, Tzivaot, the entire Metatronic thing. And the Torah is amazing, and the sages are amazing, and we will see you next week. I think what we're going to do next week is we're going to do the complete line by line Isaiah 53. We'll squash that bug and get it out of the way. See y'all next week.